Welcome to this week, 60 minutes of analytical review of the big stories, topical issues and all the controversies around the world. I'm Sumner Sambo. Our top stories: Nigeria's former service chiefs are nominated for ambassadorial positions by President Buhari, and Mohammed Adamu's tenure has been extended by 3 months as Nigeria's Inspector General of Police. We have analysis. Northern Governors Forum and Northern Elders Forum issue a stark warning against ejecting Fulanis from parts of the country and reprisal attacks in parts of the north. Plus, ahead of the 2023 general election, the Independent National Electoral Commission is set to create more polling units nationwide, 25 years after the last exercise. And President Biden has laid out his ideas for American foreign policy, outlining a sweeping vision of restored American global leadership based on alliances and values. And the show begins. We start here in Nigeria with the news that the recently departed service chiefs are to become non-career ambassadors following their nominations by President Muhammadu Buhari. Retired Chief of Defense Staff General Abayomi Olonisakin, Retired Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, Retired Chief of Naval Staff Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas, Retired Chief of Air Staff Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, and Retired Chief of Defense Intelligence Air Vice Marshal Mohammed Usman all left their posts last week. After close to 6 years, the National Assembly is due to resume on Tuesday, and Buhari is urging senators to approve the nominations very quickly. Meanwhile, Mohammed Adamu has been given a 3-month extension in office as Nigeria's Inspector General of Police. It's to allow a successor to be chosen. Adamu's tenure expired on Monday after he completed the compulsory 35 years in office. Let's take a listen.
Has decided that the present IGP, Mohammed Adamu, will continue to serve as the IG for the next 3 months to allow for a robust and efficient process of appointing a new IG. I think this is not unconnected with the desire of Mr. President to not only have a smooth handover, but to also ensure that right officer is being appointed into that position.
Well, to help put these issues into proper perspectives for us, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Oke Ikechukwu, who is the Executive Director of Development Specs Academy, a strategic communications training and human capital development organization incorporated in Nigeria. And along with him here is Arise News analyst Mahmoud Jega. Good to have you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
All right, here we are. President Muhammadu Buhari surprising the nation by appointing his former service chiefs as ambassadorial nominees. These are going to be non-career ambassadors if they're actually cleared by the Senate. And there have been lots of speculations, a lot of analysts are out there. Opposition parties have also been asking that it looks like this is an attempt to shield them from the ICC's prosecution and all of that. What are your thoughts, Dr. Oki?
Well, my first observation is that it is not entirely surprising. Over the years, the president, if you observe closely, has a reputation for wanting to keep around him anybody he has ever dealt with and trusted. So for me, it wasn't entirely surprising. The other observation is that let us separate the core issues from how people feel about it. The president, by the powers conferred on him, has the right and duty to appoint ambassadors, both career and non-career. So that is not in question. Also, he is presumed to be able to determine those who are suitable for that position, so nobody can question it. Now, the crisis on the controversy is not about that right, but the wisdom in the way it is, in which it's been exercised. Let us look at the implications beyond the fact of whether they are former service chiefs. Within the foreign ministry, there's a career path for everybody. These gentlemen have served as service chiefs for 4 years, and then extra 2 years. They are seasoned security personnel who could become the backbone for a new template for managing national security. And now that they are actually off the heat of the theater of events, they have perspective drawn from both experience and exposure to be the backroom team that will enable the nation deal with all of this. Now they are likely to observe and see, oh, we could have gotten it better here and there. And if the president could trust them and retain them for 6 years, that would be what you might call the ideal backroom team on national security with their international connections. So to move them into the diplomatic domain would, in my view, be a loss to national security. They've served 30-something years. How much did it take to train them? And
so they were done 40 years.
40.
Actually.
And how much did it take the nation to train, promote until they got to that level? All that investment will disappear because they are now going to be ambassadors. So on the face of it, I have issues with that.
All right, let's go to you, Mahmoud. Do you think it's a win-win situation? Nigerians were clamoring for the sack of these service chiefs, and here the president surprises the nation by sacking them, and then he decides to also reward them. Is this a win-win situation for the country?
Maybe for the former service chiefs, it is a win-win. The president must be trying to send a certain message to the public. I'm not sure what the message is, whether it is that he really very reluctantly caved into public pressure and removed the former service chiefs because he still had confidence in them. Now, maybe the general public did not share in that confidence because there are many security problems, and also the fight against insurgency was also problematic. Otherwise, it was a very surprising thing to do. It's not like we didn't have military officers as ambassadors before, especially in the years of military rule. But to have 5 or 6 of them who have just departed as service chiefs overnight. And really, there are some diplomatic positions probably for which a soldier is suitable. Maybe a country living by crisis. Defense attaches are relatively junior, you know, they are colonels and things like that. But maybe you have one post where there is a lot of crisis, and you may say a soldier may do very well there. But 5 of them, all of them, we don't know which countries they are going to. I don't know whether there are as many crisis-ridden countries. So on the whole, it was a very surprising kind of message that the president has sent with this appointment. Now,
let's talk about soldiers as diplomats. We've had the former Nigerian Minister of External Affairs, Joseph Namven Garba, being a diplomatic soldier, like he had said, and was very successful at that. He was Nigeria's former permanent representative to the United Nations. He went on to become president of the United Nations for some time. I mean, what do you think of the roles of soldiers as diplomats when they've left their positions? No, because some have said that Pakistan, Afghanistan, and India actually does that a lot, and so they don't see anything wrong with that.
Many countries do that. Even the US does that. Some army generals have been secretaries of state, which is the highest diplomatic position you can have. So some soldiers could be, they have the right temperament to be. And there are also situations where you need an impatient fellow. You may say, well, a soldier may be good for this particular assignment. You see, the surprising thing here is not that an army general was appointed. It's just their number. And also that they are just
one fell swoop.
One fell swoop. Otherwise, if you picked one of them and said, let him go to this particular country, we think his temperament and the experience will fit into that role, I don't think there would have been so much controversy all around.
Very interesting. Now, we've also had the opposition crying, blue murder, saying that, look, it's an attempt to shield people like Buratai from prosecution by the ICC. But as it stands right now, there's no formal indictment by the ICC. There are only just allegations that groups have sent to the ICC and all of that. How true is such kind of allegation that he's trying to shield these people, the former service chiefs, from a possible prosecution? And then there are some also, the second leg of that question is that there are some who have said that Buhari may likely send them to become ambassadors in countries like Chad. that's very close to us because of the war, or Cameroon or Niger Republic, yeah, so that they will still be monitoring what's going on. And if there's also any challenge, they could actually rush back. Assuming any country wants to arrest them, they can quickly rush back into Nigeria's borders. What do you say of that?
Well, first on the matter of what was the first leg of it?
Now, yes, talking about the issues generally that have to do with...
Okay, whether he was trying to shield them.
Yeah, shield them.
All of that is purely speculative. So even any answer I give now will still be speculation.
Well,
it may
you have
true.
the major opposition parties, right?
No, but
you know, raising the temperament of the country.
Even if the fact that it's coming from the opposition parties doesn't give it any credibility. I may be mistaken, but what has been their opposition? Press releases? Everything the government, the APC government does is bad. Opposition is about alternative policy positions. Occasional review of the state of the nation. Informed ideological positions. They are not activists. That's what these opposition people don't realize. So it does not confer credibility on the allegation at all. I have my own suspicions, which may even be stronger than their own. But like I said, it remains speculative. Let them take it to court. Let them take it to the ICC. Let them make a case that's strong enough to warrant even the diplomatic immunity being reviewed in case that's what they're talking about. Beyond that, this is not a matter that should distract us. Political engagement in a democracy like ours is about active engagement. Not shouting so that people will notice you. It delivers no mileage politically, which is the mistake they keep making. Now, on the matter of whether they are going to be posted to charge, it's possible, but whether that will confer anything is a question. But the other point I'd like to make, let us not make any mistake about it. The armed services and the security agencies have the highest quality of the most developed human capital in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And you're not talking about just their profession.
All right, I'm sorry, I just have to cut you short because we have to go on a short break. When we come back, you continue. Well, we'll have to go on this short break now. There's more when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Week, where we have the best of analysis and conversations. I'm Somna Sambo. In other news, the Nigeria Governors Forum and the Northern Elders Forum have expressed concerns over reports of attacks and ejection of Fulani herders in their host communities across the country. They caution that Nigeria is going through a lot and escalating such tensions will not resolve any grievances but rather aggravate the situation to levels that could threaten national security. The Northern Elders Forum asks Fulani herders to leave the south for the north and seek protection where it is available. Let's take a listen.
We had released two statements where we said no one has a right to eject Fulani. Fulani has a right, like every Nigerian, to live peacefully within the law, and no one has a right to eject him just for being Fulani. It is dangerous, it is illegal, and it's wrong. So we told them to stay put. But increasingly, more and more communities are assuming responsibility to eject the Fulani, to demonize him, to criminalize him. These are people that have been familiar with communities for decades and centuries. And suddenly every Fulani is a criminal. And the state appears to have abdicated its responsibility to thugs and brigands and small little people who are chasing the Fulani all over the place. So what we said is, we demand that the Nigerian state should protect the Fulani like they're protecting everybody else.
And I still have with me in the studio Dr. Okeke Chukwu, the Executive Director of Development Specs Academy. And I have also with me Arise News analyst Mahmoud Jega. Just before we go into this, you were actually making a very strong point because it's still linked together on how the military has the best set of trained, qualified human capital that can actually deal with these insecurity
so many issues
generally.
And the fact that somebody has retired from service doesn't mean he should go to the dustbin. They are the ones who are taken on as visiting professors, consultants on security. So let's not demonize people because they were military people. Most of the attainments in service were based on promotions from one establishment to the other. The procedure is known. So let's not, in the heat of this controversy, begin to forget that these are also people who have risked their lives. We may not be satisfied with their service, but they are human beings. They are not exhausted in their capacities, but there is concern, and I share that concern, about the wisdom of the president's decision in where he deployed them at the moment. I'm not sure that's the best.
Now let's talk about this issue related, the farmer header clashes. That's where the military was actually accused of failing, that a lot of bandits have been coming in, and we could see the works of people like Sheikh Ahmad Gumi going on, and we saw these armed bandits with a lot of AK-47 and things like that.
Military assault
yes,
rifles.
And this issue is not just within Nigeria, it's a West Africa issue, and I want you to link it with the possibility of these former service chiefs actually being posted within these West African countries to see how Nigeria could help to nip in the bud this transborder crisis.
Without prejudice to those who hold that view, the question we must ask is, what did they deliver while they were strictly on the job? So I don't share that enthusiasm. But more importantly, the gentleman who just spoke, I think he makes the point completely. There are Fulani people in the area who sells here. There are Fulani people all over the country who import grain and sell. Has anybody ejected them? There are Fulanis who are prominent in many communities, and I'm from the southeast. They are intact. Therefore, let us make a distinction between ejection of Fulanis and ejection, and there are headers. My primary school friend in whose house I ate tuwo for the first time in Omaha was Mohammed Bako from Kano. There are reputed headers till tomorrow as we speak all over the country. Nobody's asking them to go. The issue that led to this controversy had to do with the effort of the state government to eject headers out of forest reserves, places you're not allowed to live in by law. So let's make a distinction, because there's a point you'll make and you don't know you're criminalizing a people. One thing I have a lot of Fulani friends, there's a certain dignity about the average Fulani person, true or false. It's a fact, So, but leaving all of that aside now, there was a time also a lot of people were being arrested in Semeboda for smuggling, and some people tried to make a view that no, it's targeted against Igbo people. What point are you making? That they are the smugglers, isn't it? So in this confused campaign, you may actually be, without intending it, stigmatizing the Fulanis as people who don't respect the living space allowed by law. And if you look at, just a minute now, if you look at the apparent resolution in Ondo, Mietiala has stepped in and accepted to take custody and take them out in acknowledgement of the fact that where they were was not where they are supposed to be.
All right, I would just want to go to
Mahmoud
Jega here to actually get your views on this controversy and how the Northern Governors Forum have waded in, and then the Northern Elders Forum actually saying that, look, if you're ejected, you can actually come back home. And the Kano State Governor, Abdullahi Ganduje, saying that, look, we should actually stop this movement of, cattle headers from one part of the country to the other. What are your views and your thoughts?
Okay, you see, to go back to the source of the tension, as far as I can see, you see, it's not the Ondo state government's decision to eject pastoralists from certain forests, because as you expect, if it is a state governor doing something, he might do it in a measured fashion. But this man in Oyo State, who was going from one community to
Sunday
another, Sunday Boho, saying...
Some have been calling him Yoruba activists.
Boasting and saying we have expelled all the Fulani. He didn't say criminals. He said we expelled all the Fulani, they are no longer here. And also the video from Ebonyi State, where some members of, I think it was called Eastern Security Network
yes,
went to a small Ruga hut. There were no people there as far as I could see, and they were setting it on fire and saying,
videoing it so as to circulate on social media.
Emotional things raise emotions more than actually the impact that they had on the ground. Luckily, I don't think they killed anybody. Maybe they chased them out first, and then they set it. But it was such a dramatic video showing everywhere. So that's the kind of thing. And the state, both federal and state governments, should not allow demagogues and some hoodlums to take charge of internal security policy. It's actually what Dr. Akim Ahmed said, that it is the failure of the state itself, because when you have the problem of banditry and kidnapping proliferating, and the state didn't seem to have a solution, well, the communities may not just sit back. So you understand that.
Let's talk about the threats of reprisal attacks right now, very quickly, before we go on another break. What would you proffer solutions to prevent, attacks in the north against southerners based on this social media circulation and all of that?
Everywhere, and people, if you remember some years ago, I think when IPOB said something in the south and one group in the north, I think Northern Youth or something, said that all Igbos should leave the north, that kind of thing. Luckily, I think that time the northern governors stepped up and were owning them, and Buhari also, when he came back from abroad, stepped in.
Including Rufai too.
So that's the kind of thing leaders should do. You see, if you are a hoodlum probably somewhere in the Ebonyi rural area, you don't probably mind if something happens to even your kinsmen in Kano or somewhere. It's not your business, you are at home, you feel safe and comfortable. But then there are elders and statesmen who should know better that if this kind of thing proliferates, nobody is safe, and they should stop in.
Okay, Dr. Okeke, we also want to hear your views on that. How do we prevent this kind of north-south?
No, the first thing is this whole thing will not have happened if the federal government in particular had risen to the occasion all along. We know of cases where farms are overrun and all over the place. And you have cows in front of the Supreme Court walking through states and all of that. It never used to be so, so what has gone wrong? So there's a provocative silence that has been around for too long. And also the state governors themselves have also not made interventions that even acknowledge the problem. So the people are simultaneously angry with their governors and the federal government, and at the local government level there's no statement either to assuage passions or to intervene to stop it. No state governor forum should make the mistake of taking the position of people stay where they are. You're only encouraging confusion. The average farmer in Nigeria and the average header, what's their level of rational interface? And it's not about being north or south. The tendency is for the people to very easily run into a fight until there's intervention. Now, I believe that the state governors and state governments should stop making provocative statements. Recognize headers in each state should be called to a meeting and told, your lifeline is on the line because of people who are misbehaving. How do we deal with it? That will be consultation. That will show respect.
Very interesting, provocative silence you had said, but on the part of the government and leaders across the country. Well, it's time for another short break. There's more when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Week, where we review big stories and bring to you up-to-date analysis on relevant issues around the world. I'm Somna Sambo. The Independent National Electoral Commission says it is set to create additional polling units nationwide to boost voter turnout in elections. INEC National Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu says concerns about low voter turnout in elections make the expansion of voters' access to polling units imperative. According to Professor Yakubu, the last time polling units were established in Nigeria was 25 years ago, in 1996, by the defunct National Electoral Commission of Nigeria, NECON. And since then, the Commission has tried unsuccessfully to set up more polling units. At the first consultative meeting of the year with political party leaders, he is urging them to do more in the areas of voter and civic education, voter mobilization and inclusivity. Let's take a listen to him.
It was agreed that political parties, INEC, and all stakeholders need to do more in the areas of voter and civic education, voter mobilization, and inclusivity. After the meeting, the Commission critically appraised the situation. In addition to other factors highlighted by political parties and other stakeholders, the Commission is of the firm belief that expanding voter access to polling units in Nigeria is crucial to voter turnout in elections. Experience has shown that enhanced voter access to polling units increases turnout in elections. Not surprisingly, many countries around the world expand access to polling units with ever fresh registration of voters, while others do so routinely or before every general election. Increase in voter population, emergence of new settlements, urbanization, distance to existing polling units, difficult terrain, and other factors require constant review to give the voter a pleasant experience on election day. Above all, in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is necessary to decongest polling units to minimize overcrowding and reduce the long distances voters travel, often in overcrowded means of transport, in order to vote during elections. Unfortunately, the last time polling units were established was 25 years ago in 1996 by the defunct National Electoral Commission of Nigeria, NECON.
And I still have with me in the studio Dr. Okeke Chukwu, the Executive Director of Development Specs Academy, and by Arise News analyst Mahmoud Jega, and from our Overflow studio by Paul James Ape, Program Manager Elections, Yaga Africa. Good to have you. Let's start with you over there in our Overflow studio. What exactly would you say is the reason for this action being taken now, considering that there had been previous calls for this to have been done over a decade ago and that wasn't done?
Thank you for inviting me. And I think the INEC chair has said it all. There couldn't have been a better time to start this process than now, especially because the Commission is planning to embark on the continuous voters registration exercise, which was suspended in August of 2018 ahead of the 2019 presidential election. There are going to be new voting settlements. There are going to be new voting districts, for instance. The new voters, the new people that are going to be registered will need to be aware of this location. And if you go back to the history of our recent past, for instance, the 2019 presidential election, where INEC said they registered 84 million Nigerians for the election, although 72 million collected their PVCs, 34% participated in that election. And if you go back to also the statistics from 2015, where INEC registered 67 million, 43% participated in the election. In 2011, INEC registered 73 million, 53% participated in the election. So as the voting population decreases, we begin to ask the questions, what could be the challenges? And over the years, based on our engagement with the process, we have discovered that one of the reasons could be the issue of access to polling units. We have seen even from the recent elections in Edo and Ondo, for instance, in 16% of polling units in Edo, based on reports from our Yaga Africa observers, In 16% of polling units, it was possible to see how voters marked their ballot. That is implying there was a challenge of the secrecy of upholding the secrecy of the ballot. And in 20% of polling units in Edo, according to Yaga Africa report as well, that the polling units were overcrowded, thereby also increasing the chances of all kind of infractions you can think of around the polling unit area. So I think this is, for me, very timely. And I like the fact that this conversation is also happening now. It is very important, very expedient that it happened way ahead of the 2023 election so that it is not politicized. The attempt by Jega in 2015 to create additional polling unit happened in August. Not also forgetting that the election, it was barely 6 months until the 2015 election. Of course, that came with a lot of controversy. It pitched the North, for instance, against the South. Jega wanted to create additional 30,057 polling units, which will have increased the number of polling units by 150,000. And so it pitched the two regions together. The North was supposed to get about 21,000 polling units, while the South was to get about 8,000 polling units. So because of those sort of challenges we had with that, that was experienced when Jega made that attempt, I think this for me is very crucial, and it's very, INEC is taking the necessary steps, especially with the engagement of stakeholders. I think one of the challenges from the engagement with Jega was because there was not enough publicity around it, there was not enough voter education. So I like the call by Professor Mahmoud, for instance, that every stakeholder needs to be involved. Political parties will need to involve, especially in the area of voter education. They have relegated their responsibilities to CSOs, and I think political parties have more followers than even, if you look at the structure of Nigerian politics, they have more followers than even some structures we have, like the churches and the mosques. So perhaps this is a good place to start, that they need to invest more in voter education, and for me, this is the right time to start this engagement.
All right, very interesting conversations you've got here. Now, how do we ensure that politicians do not actually hijack this process and stand against some particular voting units that are located in shrines, in their houses and all of that, Oba Palace, or other palaces of traditional rulers? Because over the years, they've always insisted that those polling units must remain. And then secondly, the INEC chairman has said that about 5,000 stakeholders had called for an increase and expanding of these polling units in 26 states. How much cooperation do you think that the state governments would actually give to INEC in trying to expand these polling units?
So I think for me, even the 5,000 will be more. These are direct engagement with INEC recs across the states, and which to a large extent has not even been extended to the civil society organization. At the moment, INEC had 57,000 voting points, which was a creation in 2011 to see how they could decongest polling units. I thought we could even start from that conversation, because now on the average, you have 700 voters per polling unit in Nigeria. As it stands, we have 119,973 polling units. And then with 84 million registered voters, if you do the math, you are going to get an average of 700 voters per polling unit. For a location, for instance, like in Buhari, Abuja, as of the 2019 election, had a voting population of 1,126,000. And then on the average, 2,000 voters per polling unit. Dutse Alaji primary school that served the entire Buhari has 6,440 registered voters, although it got about 13 voting points. And so imagine if all of these people will come to register, to participate on election day. A lot of the time people will tell you, but we always know that people will not turn out to vote. But my question is, what if they turn out to vote? And that is what we need to start preparing for. So for me, it's for all hands to be on deck. It's not just about the politics. I mean, they always want to see how they could tilt this to their advantage, and that is why you need all stakeholders to come on board. I am happy that INEC is engaging every stakeholder. They are started with the political parties, because somehow that is the vehicle through which candidates emerge in election. But then, I'm sure the next engagement will be with the traditional rulers, with the civil society, and also with the religious institution.
All right,
what we
Paul.
all need to do here is,
Paul, if I may come in here, sorry to break in. I just want to get your views on this before we allow you to go. How much longer do we have to wait after this exercise is done this year? Should we need to wait for another 25 years? And why did it take us this long? Why shouldn't it be something that's done maybe after every election cycle, or maybe 2 election cycles at most?
If wishes were horses for me, this is what should have been done after every election cycle. If you go back to 1996, when this was, the polling units were created, they were meant to serve 50 million registered voters for a population of 110 million. By 2000, in fact, if you Google as of today, the population of Nigeria is estimated to be 209 million. That is representing about 90% increase. So the expectation was that, I mean, the first election that happened in 1999, you've got 57 million registered voters. Don't forget, this was meant to serve 50 million registered voters, but even from the first election, we've got 57 million registered voters. 52% turned out to vote in that election. So for me, I would say this is an exercise that should rather be part of the post-election engagement for INEC. We shouldn't even wait until after every 4 years. After every election, we could even start on the state-by-state basis. If we see the need to expand, we expand. We are limiting access, especially for persons with disability. Nigeria has got about 25 million people with disability. That is documented. And if you look at the current structure of most of our polling units, they are not accessible. They are in locations that even for average voters cannot access. First, if you also go back to the issue about our registration, registrations are even done at registration areas. Nigeria got 8,809 registration area centers. But the last election, before the 2019 election, this happened in 1,446 centers, and mostly in local government offices, which was far for people to access. So if we start this process early, we make it, and we move away from this episodic engagement. I am sure we are going to defeat this politicization that comes around the creation of polling unit each time this issue comes up. INEC is within their right to create polling unit. The Constitution has mandated them to do that. Our other
Paul, I'm afraid we just have to go at the moment because we do not have enough time, but we must thank you so much. Paul Lape, Programs Manager of Yaga Africa, speaking with us on INEC's plan to create more polling units. And then back to the studio here. Let me start with you, Dr. K. Very quickly, in 60 seconds, can you just give us your insight into this plan to create additional polling units?
I think it's a very good idea. Demographic update. People have had more children. New businesses have come. Some parts of Nigeria that were not developed 25 years ago are now cities, so it makes a lot of sense. I think INEC should be commended for it. In addition to the fact that demography demands it, the fact of technology, the challenge, the new normal also demands that we have more polling units. So it's a very good move in the right direction.
And you, Mahmoud Jaga?
I was living in Buratai area of Abuja in 2011 when INEC did that registration of voters. And we were told that when this polling unit was created in 1996, Buratai was a very small village. And since then it has become the largest
metropole.
Very interesting indeed. All right, I'm afraid we just have to go for a short break now. Time for a short break. When we come back, there's more. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Week, where we hold the best of analysis and conversations. I'm Sonia Sambo, and I still have with me here Dr. Okie Ikechukwu, Executive Director of Development Specs Academy, and Mahmoud Jega, a Rise News analyst. Let's start from you, Mahmoud. On the extension of the tenure of the IGP of Police, Mohammed Adamu, by 3 months, what do you think was on the mind of President Buhari for doing that, considering that the new Police Act spells out clearly what should be done?
Indeed, and also the reason for the extension, which was given by the Minister of Police Affairs. Personally, it didn't sound very convincing, because he said time is needed for a proper selection of a new IG. Now, since the government knew all along that Mohammed Adamu will clock 35 years in service on 1st February, the process should have started 3 months or 6 months ago. In any case, it doesn't take 3 months really to choose an IG, because you have to choose either among the 6 DIGs or at best among the AIGs, maybe 20 of them or less, I don't know. And that should not take 3 months. And the tradition since 1999 has been, if you don't want any of the DIGs for balancing or any other reason,
you clear all of them.
Clear all of them, pick one of the AIGs. And anybody who rose to the position of AIG or DIG, I think can be the IG. I mean, some are better than others, no doubt, but almost any one of them can do it. You don't need 3 months, I think.
So, Dr. Okay, here we have the IGP who is supposed to have cleared his desk as of Monday, still resuming office, continuing. He had to take a President Muhammadu Buhari's return from Daura to tell him that, look, don't bother to go. You have 3 months. Are we saying that the Police Act is not being followed here as should be? And then why are the 36 state governors not playing their role as providing the police council in the new Police Act by shortlisting 3 persons from which Mr. President will pick one?
No, the point is that this development reinforces the reputation of the federal government as sloppy. Like Mahmoud has said, you had a tenure you knew when it would end. You waited actually until after 1st February and then told us you're searching. It is not good, and it's not the first time it's happening. If you remember, I think we had a related but not quite the same controversy, whether it's for
it's happened with the Hinderu, I think, yes. Okiro, and some previous ones too.
Particularly now.
Oh, okay.
But that's not really my worry. My worry is the current image of the federal government under Buhari to be anti-youth and anti-professional growth.
And what do you mean by that, actually?
Take the list of ambassadors who got extensions. Take the list of heads of parastatals who got renewals. And that pattern is growing. And you also find it in all the agencies of government. What does it tell you? If I've been in this organization, there's a clear professional growth trajectory. Somebody gets to the top. We expect that in 4 years another will come. That one moves on to bigger fields. In 4 years, you tell him to stay. Stagnation occurs, frustration occurs. Those who will have gotten to that position before retirement don't get. And so you have an organization where bad blood will be growing, but everybody will be saying good
morning. So are you saying that we are running a gerontocratic government?
That is one. Number two, the youth, the younger generation, and I'm not talking about just those who are within the category of what you call youth. You're not opening up space. So no matter what you say about looking at the future, you're not bringing on the generation for the future.
And that's what I'm asking, that we run a gerontocratic government.
It's a little more than gerontocratic, because gerontocracy presumes a certain lifespan. I think we're bringing our ancestors on, and that's worrisome.
Very interesting. Well, we just have to move to other issues now. Now to America, where President Joe Biden has moved to reset America's place in the world. In his first foreign policy speech since taking office, the president declared America is back, pledging to reinvest in alliances and diplomacy and to emphasize democratic values. Let's listen to him.
Is back. America is back. Diplomacy is back at the center of our foreign policy. As I said in my inaugural address, we will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's. American leadership must meet this new moment of advancing authoritarianism, including the growing ambitions of China to rival the United States and the determination of Russia to damage and disrupt our democracy. We must meet the new moment accelerating global challenges, from the pandemic to the climate crisis to nuclear proliferation, challenging the will only to be solved by nations working together and in common. We can't do it alone. Over the past few days, we've been in close cooperation with our allies and partners to bring together the international community to address the military coup in Burma.
All right, here we have President Biden speaking, to the world and letting the entire universe know that America is back. And one of the things he has said is that he will stop funding for the Saudis' operations in Yemen and all of that. And of course, the purported withdrawal of troops from Germany and all of that, that Trump administration had wanted to do, he will still leave the troops there. What are your views on all of these policies, Mahmoud? He's saying America is back.
You see, most of the world, including most of us in Africa, are happy with the advent of the Biden administration and also his effort to undo many of the policies of the Trump administration at home and abroad that really made America to look one kind, to use the. But you see, America is back could be as dangerous as America is gone.
That's what I wanted to say. Because some countries may actually be afraid of what that means.
Coming back, you see, like one element, you see, American leadership is certainly desired in certain areas, like in combating climate change, in solving some intractable world problems like the Middle East problem. But there are certain areas of America coming back, like he mentioned, more or less countering what you call authoritarianism in China and in Russia. I mean, if they draw
sovereign state,
yeah, if they draw battle lines like that, that is what makes the world very unsafe. And then they sometimes go beyond that to this regime change element. A government that does not conform to their expectations, they engineer a war to get it out. For all the faults of Donald Trump, that was one part of him that we liked because he was averse to
external wars.
Exactly.
Okay, very interesting. Dr. Okay, here, let's talk about that aspect of America trying come back. But you know what the world expects from that coming back.
No, America has already made up its mind what to compel the world to take, not expect. America is back. That's the America where Obama was president for 8 years. That's the America where Biden was vice president. That's the America that imposed sanctions on Nigeria, not for looting, not because we had dictatorship, but because we passed a law against gay marriage based on the preponderance preference of Nigerians. So when you say America is back, these are, with all due respect to the gentleman, totally nebulous assertions, because whether you withdraw troops from Germany or you bring troops into Afghanistan, our concern should be our own sovereignty and our humanity. And I suspect that being part of a government that did a lot to subvert humanity, generally, globally, exporting external values, America is back, like Mahmoud said. There be every reason to be thoroughly alarmed.
So it should be on the positive aspects, like, for example, rejoining all the international organizations and all of that,
no,
and not the negative aspects.
I'm not ending on any positive and negative, because in the end, it's not really global values, it's American values that get put on these platforms of global values. If America does not stand to gain from a renewed battle against, there were losses for America which Trump overlooked. These are going to be reaffirmed and regained. So let's not start dancing. That masquerade is not from our own village.
Very interesting indeed, Dr. Okey Ikechukwu, Executive Director of Development Specs Academy. And we also have here Mahmoud Jega, Arise News Analyst. I almost used a doctor there. We must thank all of you. And Paul Ape, Program Manager of Yaga Africa earlier on. Well, that's it for this edition of This Week from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye and thank you for watching.